how do I take this elite standard and teach it at a lower level so that even the Gen Pop, the way we kind of refer to it is, I want to raise the standard of average.
Welcome to the Captains and Coaches podcast. We explore the art and science of leadership through the lens of athletics and beyond. I'm your host, Tex McQuilkin, and today's guest embodies resilience in its purest form. We welcome Ben Mayfield-Smith, the founder of Matter Athletica. At 21, Ben's professional rugby career in Australia ended instantly when a car accident left him with permanent spinal damage. From contemplating suicide to completely reinventing himself, Ben discovered that his true calling wasn't just about physical transformation, but unlocking the psychological barriers that limit human achievement. In this powerful episode, Ben reveals his framework for helping clients envision their 5-year potential. He breaks it down into actionable processes that create immediate momentum. You'll discover why most people set goals that others want for them rather than what truly drives their deepest ambitions. Get ready to challenge your perception of what's possible as we explore how tragedy can become the ultimate catalyst for discovering your authentic purpose. Let's listen in as Ben helps us raise the game. Ready, and break. We're kicking this off. I've seen Dumb and Dumber 1,000 times. And one of my just kickers is when, it's right in the intro, when he pulls up in the limousine and that beautiful woman's at the bus stop and he's like, "It's a lovely accent you have." She's says Austrian. He's like, "Oh, let's put another shrimp on the body."
Oh.
So it just clicked to me that Bobby is barbecue, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah, that's a summer Barbie is what we do. So, however, to clarify, the next time we come over there, no one throws a shrimp on the Barbie. I don't know how Paul Hogan came up with that catchphrase. I don't know how that became an advertising slogan in the 80s. No one puts a shrimp on the barbecue.
Oh, that wasn't Dumb and Dumber. So Dumb and Dumber was referencing Hogan.
Yeah, you know Paul Hogan from Crocodile Dundee.
I know what Crocodile Dundee is. I just haven't seen it.
So the actor Paul Hogan run this tourism ad for Australia, and basically was like, "Come down under, we'll throw a shrimp on the Barbie," and no one has ever done that. And it was this big Australian advertising campaign during the 80s, and that was pretty much how everyone grew to reference Australia forever, of all time.
Wow. We learn new things every day. This is amazing. Now
we had a random Starbucks attendee, clerk, server, whatever you want to call it, and we're in the middle of Reston, Virginia, just going for a walk to get a coffee, and this guy's like, heard my partner speak, and he's like, "That accent, I know it." He's like, "Australian, Crocodile Dundee, shrimp on the Barbie," and we're just like, we've done so many cool things from Australia, and that's all you got from 40 years ago now. All right, that's what we're known for now.
What else is cool?
But that's it. We throw shrimp on the Barbie. That's our thing. And really bad breakdancing.
Oh my goodness gracious, God! What a nightmare! That woman. Did she just pack up her things and just leave the country, or what?
No, she actually she stood her ground and basically offered $10,000 to anyone to come verse her and beat her in breakdancing. So she stood on her business that she was an Olympic breakdancer and was like, "You know what? If you can do it better than me, I'll give you $10,000. Come verse me." And everyone's just like, "Please sit down. Like we're done with you."
So she lost the $10,000.
I just don't even think anyone bothered to turn up.
Wow.
Even more embarrassing. I was like, "It's not even worth my time."
Yeah, when you started to see her become a Halloween costume.
Oh yeah,
global icon. And
we don't get known for many good things.
Man, unfortunately, that sport is not in the 2028 Olympics.
I'm not saying it's got everything to do with her, but I'm saying there's a lot to do with her. If we're known for anything, it broke breakdancing in the Olympics.
Yeah, I mean, she'll go down in history 100 years from now. They'll be like, "Hey, I got a good sport idea," and go back.
Didn't they
They'll
try
want
that once?
well, after 100 years, lacrosse is back in 2028, so I'm a happy camper. And rugby's been back since 2016. It's the sevens.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty fast. So now I feel this is a good segue. That's what we call it in the podcasting show biz into your journey, Ben. So you started as that rugby athlete as a young man, and you had an opportunity in front of you until dun dun dun. So speak to us on that moment where you're seeing a vision for yourself, and then tragedy strikes.
Let's do it. So, I've told this story many times, and every time it still gets like, it gets goosebumps. Like, it feels like it's a whole different life to me now from what I live now, where I am. It's chasing 12 years since the incident, but there was this whole life before that. My entire life was predicated on playing rugby league. That was my dream, my passion. I mean, we have player profiles that we used to have team managers coaching our club teams. Mum was our team manager. We had these player profiles. We were like 6 years old. What do you want to be when you grow up? What's your favorite color? What's your favorite team? Who do you follow in the NRL? That was our professional code here. And, kids are writing carpenter, truck driver, doctor. And I was like, I'm playing rep football for this club, for this team. I'm doing this. I was at 6 years old. The bar was like this high. There was no like, I'll have some fun and I'll do like this. This was what I wanted to do and what I was going to do. And that my entire life was basically predicated on playing the sport. And I'm not to say that I was going to go to that pro level. Like it's a very different route here in Australia. It's how you kind of go pro than D1 in college and getting drafted, things like that. So it's not to say that I was guaranteed to go to that spot, but in my head, like there was everything up until I'm 30 because 30 is the average age of rugby league, and then that's what everyone did afterwards. And that was my thing. I moved towns to play it. I changed area codes to play it. I moved my entire life to play it, chased contracts for it, had different levels of opportunities in high school for it, where, I was part of a state championship team here in Australia for it in high school. So, I got to play some very exciting levels. It took us around the country. I did some great things with it. And my entire life was basically play the sport and do my job to sustain that sport. So, to try and make it here in Australia, it's not like you go through the college route. A lot of the time that to make it at the NRL level, the rugby league level, it's playing at club level, weekend sport at a high level, getting contracts and basically working with the grades. And then you try to get selected from those games, from those teams to go play at the professional level. And so I was basically working a full-time job as an apprentice carpenter so that I could sustain paying my way through playing this sport. So my entire life was basically this sport, everything else to sustain that. And unfortunately, at 2021, I was making my way through the ranks of a new town inside this new club and this new team. The year before, we just won a grand final. Sorry, we just lost the grand final, but we were in it. We're part of the championship opportunity team. Worked up to the next grade the following year. I'm getting opportunities here to trial for the next grade, so like kind of going from like a D1 like towards like a D1 team kind of thing. And at 21, I was on the way to work one morning, and I was hit by a car. And that was like pretty much in the span of 5 years, everything that could possibly go wrong basically went wrong. And it was one of the most depressive, humbling, but also like if I were to look back at it, grateful periods of my life because it changed and challenged everything, but it gave me opportunities to really see who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I went through, so like I know for a fact I still have the memories. I know the exact bridge. I have no qualm saying it. I don't get shy about it. I don't shy away from it. I know exactly the bridge that I would drive past because my parents lived a certain way away from me. I lived in a new town. I would drive home every once in a while to see them. I had a partner in this new town, so I'd go usually on the weekends. And the damage that was done to my back, the pain that was done to my back in my life, I technically have a 10% spinal impairment of my lumbar spine. So like there's permanent experiences there. Even though it feels like it's a new life, I still go through moments where I'm like, oh no, that was still a part of who I am. That still happened. I still have that with me. And I remember the pain was so bad, the experience was so bad, that the failure, the hopelessness. It was basically like, you are not going to get any better. This isn't going to improve. You can't do your job anymore. The career was over. There is no playing rugby league again. That like the insurances and the risks to injury ratio is too high. Like you are not going to be able to get a contract here. So basically, everything that I knew about who I was, what I did, and who I am as a person just got stripped away in the space of 5 seconds because someone couldn't wait at a red light. And that was pretty much the day where everything just like topsy turvy. And it really, the exciting part is, I would say I'm who I am now because of it. But I think the best part about it is that it revealed who I already was. And that's, I think, part of the story that makes me most proud to tell it, is that though I was depressed, I was suicidal, I was, I had the plans in place, I had the locations in place, I knew what I would have done if I had done it. It showed me more of who I was to overcome that, not let that win. And so that was 12 years ago now, but yeah, still definitely something that I can pluck from memory clear as day. And it was a big part of just changing the course of my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that reminds me of quote John Wooden, very, very famous coach here in the United States from college basketball level. And he said, sports don't teach character, they reveal it. So this was an instance for you where, all right, most people use an injury as, all right, this is a character building moment. Well, you had years through athletics, through family and life to build that character that then prepared you for this moment and reveal it to yourself.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I think. Go.
No, I was going to now lean into the education. So your next phase of your personal and
Mm-hmm.
professional development. And when did you start to now lean into education? Did you see this as an outlet, or were you always a lifelong learner?
I was an interesting type of learner. Like I wasn't the best structural learner in a school setting. Um, it was very similar here. We played sport in school, we played rugby league in school, so we had programs that would pluck us from class to go to games and matches, and we'd have to travel the country and that sort of thing. So, yeah, it's very similar to American high school. You guys, that the teams are often, hey, go play sport first, come back and do your schooling. But when I found the passions of stuff that I was interested in, I would hyperfixate. So I was always kind of an avid learner of things that were definitely passionate to me. The the exciting part to me was that the injury forced me to have to find something new. And it was, well, if I can't do this thing, what's the next thing that I love to do? And the one thing that I love doing was training. I love training. I love getting better. I love trying to build my physique. I was always passionate about Arnie as much as I was always passionate about my sporting heroes and the people who played our sport. I was also passionate about, Arnie's physique was something else to me. Watching Commando growing up, watching the Total Recalls, and watching the Kindergarten Cop, and you're watching all these movies, the Terminators, like Conan. You're watching these movies with Arnie, just like, this is a peak male. And so for me, it was always like training for that. It was also part of training for my sport.
He's
And
a
so I was
real
like,
Austrian.
he's a real Austrian. That's an Austrian over that right there. And for me, that was the thing. I was like, part of it, because at the same time, to kind of give a bit more context to the story, is my father was also diagnosed with terminal cancer. And during my car accident, because my parents couldn't afford what was called like in-home care, it was either you basically paid for blue care, which is like a nurse comes and lives with you through all the treatment and stuff like that. Because I had to go through legal cases, I couldn't work, I couldn't move properly, I couldn't do a lot around the house. I was like, I'll keep an eye on him, and as I get better, I'll help him get better. And that was basically what was available to us. And it was like, how I move my life to help him out, and that was for the better part of 2.5 years. And inside that, I was like, we spent a lot of time in the gym doing rehab, making sure he's trying to stay on his nutrition, little things like, just to give listeners an example, with the type of stem cell radiation treatment that he did, he had a platelet count of 0. So that means if he basically nicked himself in the yard work, mowing the lawn, cutting the grass, weeding the flowers, it just would not stop bleeding. He would literally bleed to death unless we got him stitched up. So part of my job was basically just to take any physical labor out of his life because he would die. And that was basically where, even though I was in pain, it's like a your pain not as important as his right now. Because mine is painful, his will die. And so that's where, it kind of got me down the road of seeing, helping someone, working with someone and seeing them get better. I was like, oh, that's good. I like this. This is rewarding. It's good to see. And so for me, that was kind of like a step there where I realized I'm like, if I can't do this sport, if I can't do this thing, I need to educate myself. I need to do something new. I can't do physical labor anymore. I can't do my trade craft. Then working with people, helping people, that's the next thing for me that is on the bucket list or down the list, if you will. And to be honest, it's kind of like The Rock says, which is like, the best thing that never happened to him was going to the NFL. For me, it's probably that same story. I would have kept pursuing. I would have kept pursuing that same story, trying to get it, trying to make it, but I wouldn't have really tapped into what I love doing, which I'm doing now. And so, part of me is actually grateful for the incident because it led me down to educating and changing lives. It led me down to being able to coach people at a different level and work with people that the life level that I get to do now, that's, flown us around the world to meet you guys, present on stages, offer these perspectives that change the way people view their physical health, their performance, their psychology, their mental belief. That's like, it's a almost a gratitude that I have for a very horrible experience that led me to the education, learning, finding this passion of what I really want to do. That's yeah.
Yeah. And then that you weren't just looking at the training. A lot of coaches that find fitness, strength training, coaching for the first time, they're so focused on the program. And you made a decision, deep dive behavioral science, clinical psychology, which makes you a very unique coach in the aspect where that's not the norm, even here in the United States. So now what drew you to deep dive and think about the whole athlete and versus just, hey, follow this program because it worked for me?
Yeah, it's a really interesting take when you think about it, and you're completely right.
Time out. Every so often, I receive messages that remind me why we created the Old Bull program. Today, I want to share Kevin's story with you, not just because it showcases physical transformation, but because it represents what's possible when training evolves beyond just sets and reps. Kevin recently reached out with a message that captures the essence of what we're building. Here we go. Hey Tex, this is Kevin from Old Bull. Just wanted to shoot you a quick text to say I'm really digging the program and seeing great results. Made a few dietary tweaks, up my protein for one, but through the training I've been seeing more muscle and strength gain with infinitely less pain in the process than probably any other point in my lifting career. I recently got together with some friends I hadn't seen in a couple years, and every one of them made a comment about how they'd never seen me looking bigger or stronger than I do now. Appreciate the program and what you're doing to make it excellent. Here's what really matters. This isn't about quick fixes or unsustainable programs. Old Bull is engineered for the experienced lifter who values longevity as much as they do intensity. We're talking about intelligent progression that respects your body's signal while constantly pushing your boundaries. If you're ready to transform your training into something more sustainable, more intelligent, and ultimately more impactful, the Old Bull program is your path forward. Click the link in the show notes and take control of your strength journey today.
It's not very common to see people dive into the psyche of an individual when working with programming, nutrition, and training. Right? It's not a very common belief to go, well, the training's in play, the nutrition's in play. It must be the client's fault. And the interesting part to me was I was always passionate about elite athletes, elite individuals, high performing people, because we're really, if we look at the top 1%, if we look at like the guys that are the 1% of the 1% inside any sport, most people at the elite level all have similar skill sets, right? Like at the fundamental level, Doesn't matter if you're Kobe, LeBron, Derek, doesn't matter who you are, Dwayne Wade. You know how to dribble a ball. You know how to pass. You know how to screen. You know how to run plays, right? The basics and fundamentals are there. So what makes these guys that next level person, right? It can't just be that they're genetically better, because psychologically, genetics doesn't play that role the way that it does in, say, your muscle insertions and origin, your structure, your shape. It just doesn't work that same way. And so I was less concerned about the individual's behavior and, say, the gen pop level. And I'm a big believer in, rather than us lowering the standards to the person, I want to take the person and teach them the standards to live up to high performance. And that's where I see sport being so powerful. Is like, you don't, as the caption on our website says, like, you don't need to want to be Michael Jordan. You don't need to be the best NBA player in the world. But if we can take a glimpse of what they have to offer, how can I take that and turn your life around and make you a little bit better? How can I elevate you to be a little bit closer, right? When we look at these elite athletes, we put them on this pedestal of untouchable. And to me, it's a fallacy. It's a lie, because they started somewhere too. They started somewhere realistic. Now, to me, the pursuit is shoot for the moon, land in the stars. How do I get you, even if we're not going to that elite level, how can I make you just a little bit better in life and then see your life grow with it? And every single person that we've worked with in that regard has unquestionably improved their life. And it's usually towards the craft, like nowadays it's body composition coaching, it's performance coaching, young athletes, middle-aged athletes, new bodybuilders, things like that. But even the ones who aren't quite chasing that yet, just simply want to improve their life, their physical health, their mental health, by trying to improve these skills and these kind of beliefs in themselves that, hey, you know what? Michael Jordan isn't so far away. But in doing so, how can we make you just a little bit better? He's a one of one. But what are the things that he did that you can kind of take and implement that would make you a little bit better, that next one up? And so that's really where that interest peaked for me. I was like, it's not training nutrition. Excuse me, sorry, I'm a little bit sick. It's not training nutrition, because everyone knows training nutrition. Everyone has training nutrition available to them. The information is there. What are we lacking? What are we missing? Well, what did not everyone get access to in school? What did not everyone get access to in adolescence, in early ages? Sport, performance. Not everyone's exposed to that competitive drive to know like what it is you're trying to achieve, to have an end goal, to work towards outcomes. There's people, as Cav says all the time, there's people who will never experience a championship team. They'll never experience a grand final position or a trophy. And there's certain skills, there's certain abilities that come from playing that, from being in that area, that they otherwise wouldn't learn. And so that's where I was like, how do I take this elite standard and teach it at a lower level, so that even the gen pop, the way we kind of refer to it is, I want to raise the standard of average.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've heard you emphasize potential is perspective limited by how we view the world. And this is starting to really paint that picture for our audience here. So now, how do you introduce potential to a client? We're dealing with a lot of past behaviors or beliefs that are self-limiting, that have been instilled by other coaches or family or just society within them. So how do you now start to get them to aim up towards the stars? What's an example of some conversation to help discover and turn their perspective around?
So one of the really powerful things, almost a trend you could call it, that I've noticed in interviewing, in goal setting, in consultations, a lot of people initially come to you with a goal they think that everyone else wants them to have. That's the part that's most exciting to me, is when I get to these conversations, I'm finding that people will come and say, I want to drop 10 pounds, or I want to do this, or I want to, look a certain level of body fat, or I want to lift a certain number. It's like, okay, cool. Why is that? What does that get you? Oh, I don't know. It's just when I used to feel this way, or I used to be yada yada. It's always a drowned out kind of low intensity, low mood goal. And we kind of looked at this as, a lot of people are absent of purpose in life. They don't actually know what they're here for or what they're working towards. And so one of the things that we've really emphasized in our process of onboarding and working people is, rather than looking at what you want to do in the next 6 months, 3 months, because, most people, even at a New Year's resolution level, right? Everyone's talking about the next 4 weeks, the next 8 weeks. I want to do this year in the first quarter. it's such a narrow-minded, short-sighted view of what life has to offer. And one of the things we do is some emotional and some visual mapping exercises. And we push them to perceive what 5 years looks like. And in psychology, we call this emotional contrasting. I hit them with a few questions and really extrapolate some thoughts, both positive and negative, and see if that can evoke from them something that they didn't believe that they wanted, or something they thought they could never have. So an example of this is just very simple: is what does 5 years look like from you if everything goes wrong and your life is in hell? Now that sounds really existential. It sounds morbid. It's a very intense thought process, but there's a reason. There's research that proves when we have a fear behind us paired with a motivation or a pull in front of us, it's a greater driver because we, in the essence of asking that question, we know where we don't want to be and we know where we want to go. So every decision that we make starts to be with that in mind. So when we're evoking this thought, what does life look like from you in absolute hell? And usually, if I'm working with a father or a family man, or if I'm working with someone of that nature, a wife, it's I've lost my family, my kids hate me, I'm a poor representation of family values. I'm not living up to the standards I want to raise my kids by. For athletes, it's I've given up my passion for the sport. I've lost this, or I'm not doing these things anymore. I'm no longer fit and healthy. I've lost the dream. And it's like, okay, fantastic. From this, we have a realization here that there is a really bad alternative to the life we're trying to build. So now every decision we make at the bare minimum is working away from that. And what's the opposite of absolute negativity? It's potential. There is potential in that. There is potential into where that goes. And so the next question is, okay, people really struggle. Like if you ask someone to visualize 1,000 people or 10,000 people, it's really hard for them to tell the difference in number. If you ask people to visualize what can happen in 5 years or 10 years, it's really hard to visualize. So we start with that contrast, right? We start with the negative. Now, so okay, if you know where you don't want to go in 5 years, what does heaven look like for you? If you were to reach paradise and you're like, I'm in peace right now. Life is everything I want it to be. You can use religious moral equations here. You can use just moral language. It doesn't matter how you want to word it. What does perfection look like to you in 5 years' time? Now, everyone here, this is where I hit them with the don't be timid, don't be shy, don't be humble. I want to know what the absolute perfect life looks like for you in 5 years' time, because that's where you start to get real goals and thoughts that people have never been allowed to say. It's always like, I want to have the house and a kid and a car. I want to lose 10 pounds. I feel better in my wedding dress. Like, that's great. But between those two questions, we've got a really morbid answer here. We've got a really very fearful answer. But the opposite side of that is we have a very constructive, positive, directional answer that we're now going to tailor everything to. And the potential you hear in people when they start to recognize that, oh, I've never thought this question before. I've never been asked this question before. And that question starts to paint a picture in their head that they can actually have something they've never thought about. Or they can have something they've thought about and never believed was theirs. And that's where something like physique transformation becomes so powerful to me, because every single time we've used that as a vessel, a vehicle to transform someone's life, it's not just the physical that starts to improve. The potential in their physique development usually correlates and cross transfers to the fields of their life, their personal life, their business, their career. And all of a sudden, this potential opens up and they're like, oh, I've done this. I can now do this. I've done this. I can do this. Oh, I didn't believe I could drop 40 pounds, or I could put on 20 kilos of muscle, or I could get on a bodybuilding stage. What else can I do? Well, that was step one. Now let's change directions. Let's find out. Let's see how far we can push this. And that's where those questions really start to evoke some emotion, some connection, some drive and belief that they can do something they've never done. And that's where I really find pushing potential is so much more important than people think, rather than just playing it safe.
Yeah, I love it. A lot to build off of that. So I did get my master's in health behavior change. So there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of different models that we studied, and the models for me helped me see long term in terms
Mm-hmm.
of behavior, in terms of development, where the schooling was in like smoking cigarettes and
Yes.
don't litter. Like,
Yep.
okay, now I was, coaching athletes, college coaching, grad school. So then I was able to just spin it. Okay, well, how do I gain gain buy-in from these college boys who were my former teammates, and I understand exactly where they are right now with $2 Tuesdays when we got a Wednesday practice kind of deal. So uh, that that helped me see this long-term vision. I love the approach where we're reaching, and then 5 years like that. That's a time that yeah, a lot of the population I'm working with, they can't even see past 5 months. The
Mhm.
recently we had our lacrosse training camp for a season. It was like an overnight stay camp, sleeping bags, cabins, all the fun stuff, and then a lot of practice and team building exercise. So I was in charge of all the team building, and I had never been to this property before. It was beautiful, but the weather was not. And on the property, there was this. I'm not going to call it a lake. I'm not going to call it a pond. I'm going to call it a watering hole, if you will. So
Yeah.
in Texas, we have these things called blue holes. It's like this specific algae that grows in this perfect belt around the world that Texas lies on. And it's this bright, beautiful, royal blue watering hole. And it's on the property. It's like 2 miles. So we just do like fitness trek out there. And then
Mhm.
we run to it, and we're at water level, and I had them visualize, okay, what's your goal? What do you want to accomplish? This is varsity and JV. It's freshman to senior. What do you want to accomplish this season? Let's take 2 minutes, no technology, like focus for two
Mhm.
minutes. And then as we're thinking about it, I see this group of men. They were bird watching or something. I don't know what they were doing on the camp, and they're up on the top, like the top of the rocks, way above us, like 30 feet. The only way up there was a different path. So then I was like, man, that'd be cool for us to get up there. So we start trekking and running back, and then by then the old men are coming down a trail, and so I asked them like, hey, how do we get up there? And I take these boys off course. We get up there, and wasn't planned, but I'm thinking like, all right, these guys don't care about looking at cool nature stuff yet. Hopefully this makes a memory. So what are we going to do up here? And I thought of the movie Dead Poets Society. I don't know if you've seen it. Robin
Mhm.
Williams. Well,
Mhm.
there's a scene where he gets them to just stand up on their desk. So these students are like private school kids. Okay, let's do something crazy. Let's stand on our desk. And they're all scared. And then Robin Williams' point is like we're changing perspective. So now I'm thinking like, okay, we just changed perspective. And I did similar to what you stated here. I asked him, it's the end of the season. We're looking down, we're looking back at the start of the year where we are or where we were. Now think of your goals. And I had them state their biggest fear. Like what are you scared about this season? And then from there I had them like think up that fear and then pick up a rock. So I grab a rock, and then one by one had them share their fear, what was really weighing them down, right? So injuries, and it was surprisingly like they didn't know if they were going to care in 4 months, and I was like, what? That's just not who I am. So then after
Mhm.
they got vulnerable, they shared it. I had them throw their rock into the water, the blue hole. So it's like a representation of like, let's get this weight off your shoulders. You're not going
Mhm.
to get hurt. I'm going to take care of you. That's why we do the warm ups and the movement prep and all the stuff we do. Not caring, that's on you. Now this is a decision. Like even if we lose one game, the season's not over. Like we can still make a big run for a state championship. So helping shape perspective. Like it's okay to stumble, but certain things are
Mhm.
in your control, and the rest of it, like coaches, we got your back. Um, so that's in line with what you're thinking. I need to think bigger. I'm limiting them by not thinking 5 years, right? Um, so that speak to us on the importance of having a long-term plan with your clients because they're investing their time. They know they need something now we take them, we uncover a goal, but now it's little behaviors for a
Mm-hmm.
long-term plan. How do you
Mm-hmm.
coach? How do you walk through that? Because I mean, a lot of the stuff you do is not in person, so they're
Mm-hmm.
responsible for their success.
Absolutely, you are absolutely correct. It's not in person. It's a lot more online. It's a very different approach nowadays to how coaching used to be. But the exciting part is that the behavioral stuff, the mental stuff, it becomes easy to communicate once you start to understand your people, right? Um, for us, it's once we break that down, right? A big part of even from that 5-year topic, right? Something that I would point to for your young lads is have them establish what their values are and what their priorities are in life alongside that 5-year goal, alongside that 2-year goal, alongside the 12-month goal. We deconstruct, we do a lot of decompartmentalization inside the goal where we're basically deconstructing the process and kind of bringing it down to bite-sized pieces or incremental checkpoints. But with that, the big thing is like figuring out someone's individual goals to have that emotional buy-in to the outcome and having their priorities. So everyone's priority in a team might not be they want to go pro. They want to go to college. They might not want to go D1 and play lacrosse at a D1 school. They might just be like, I want to be the first person to graduate high school. And then if college comes, D3, D4, D2, that's cool. That's awesome. But that's the part we have to connect and understand with our clients. Like, what are your priorities? For me, it's providing education, it's uplifting people, it's taking them to the next level, showing them potential in the life that they have. But some of my clients, it might be their family, their friends, it might be their physical health more so represents their ability to live life longer and be around to help people. So there's many different reasons why their goals matter. And what you do once you have those values and priorities is you get an emotional connection from your clients, you get an emotional investment, you get an anchoring point to why they're doing the thing they're doing. Because a lot of the time it's like they're not certain why it's happening, they just feel a certain way. And so our job is to anchor them to that so that there's an emotional fallback point. Now, every time a client stumbles or falls, hey, I want you to go review your values. What are those values you told me? Like if you watch anything from Matter Athletic, it's purpose, consistency, intensity. I don't believe success is possible without those 3 words. Everything we do aligns with those 3 words and those 3 values. So that if anything differs from that, if we fall off track, if we move away from a plan, hey, do these actions or choices align with the values that we stand by? Well, if that's the case, it makes it really easy to start coaching people when you teach them to understand their own values. Now, with that, we pull back to, going back to, we've got these big 5-year plans, right? Well, usually when you tell someone a 5-year plan, it's often met with criticism by people who can't see that far. They don't have the foresight to look that far in the future. It's usually, that's impossible. That's funny. To give an example to people of how untrue that is, we wrote when I first quit my job and went full time with Matter, in 5 years, I'll be an international speaker. We did it in 18 months. Because what I find happens is a lot of the time when people don't have these big goals, these big ambitions, these big dreams, is we get very distracted by everything. And there's a lot of like our perception on what we're doing is limited by our current belief of who we are. And the person I am now is distracted by TV, by shows, by video games, by Sony, by friends, by going out, by playing my sport. Once we narrow that lens, that field of vision, now all of a sudden there's a hyperfixation. Well, I've got 5 years to do this in. What does that look like? Oh, well, all of a sudden, because you've narrowed that time of effort, you're now putting in, instead of being 2 hours a week, it's 8, it's 10. You're 5xing your investment. All of a sudden, all that 5 years now looks like 12 months. Well, what did we do? 18 months. We did a goal that we said we'd be doing in 5 years' time in 18 months. So I find that by having that clarity of where you want to go, it's, if you're at sea and you're sailing, you don't know. It's one of my favorite quotes. Can't nail it. A sailor that knows not which port he sails will float at sea. It's going to agitate me. The gist of the point being is if you don't know where you're going, you're going to continually just float around and you're not going to have anywhere to go and no destination to land, right? So we narrow that lens and say, at least let's focus here. And then what we do is we break that down. So now it's what we call process, performance, and outcome goals. We take the big goal, the big 5-year dream, that's the outcome. That's the thing that we're working towards, right? And oftentimes I try to explain to people is the outcome is irrelevant. The outcome is going to be there, and that's fantastic. but it's who we become and what we build along the way that becomes important. And with that, we start to set these structures. We set the life that makes that goal possible. Really big question here that I would have you ask your youngsters, on the top of that hill. Let's look at the championship. We're holding the trophy. We're visualizing. We've got the trophy in our hands. We've won the state title. We're all invested for different reasons, but we're all loving the fact that we've just won the state championship. Who is the version of you that wins that championship? Who is that version that gets there and holds that trophy up? A lot of the time, the person we are now is not the person we need to be in order to succeed and reach the goal. You think about why has that goal not been obtained yet? Well, because the person you are doesn't live a life that makes that goal feasible. Okay, so what does that look like? That's where we start to get to our processes and our performances. We break those down to 3-month, 6-month increments. They're our KPIs. That's our performance goals. In the gym context, that's our sessions. What are your performances like at training? What are your performances like in the weight room? Are you showing up and you actually performing as a high-performing elite athlete? For the average person, it's what are your KPIs at work? Are you hitting your sales targets? Are you hitting your numbers? Are you hitting the scale numbers? Are you tracking your food? They're the performances we put in every single day that make those 3 and 6 month checkpoints possible. Then we break it down even further and go to the daily stuff. And that's where we get our processes. What do your processes look like? When you wake up first thing in the morning, what are you doing? When you have lunch, what are you doing? When you're preparing to go to bed, when you're spending time with your family, what are these things that you are doing that take up your time? Because what happens is we need to learn, as much as we have that big, broad vision, to deconstruct and break down to the smallest tangible action unit. And those action units, kind of like Lego pieces, start stacking together. And eventually, you stacked up a good day. Now you stacked up a good week. Now you stacked up a good month. Now all of a sudden, you're 3 months in, you're like, oh, I'm a lot closer to this than I thought. That 10 pounds I was stressing about losing, it's already gone. That sleep that I wanted to improve, suddenly I feel more energetic. I've got more time on my hands because I have structure and routine. Oh, now I can invest more time into my self-development. Now I can invest more time to my nutrition. I can invest more time to coaches. Oh, what does that look like in my business? Well, now I've got more time to work on the admin, on the finances, on the accounting, the stuff that I didn't want to do, the non-negotiables that I hate doing. So now all of a sudden my business is exploding. My education's exploding. My results are exploding. So once we get those units and we break them down, it's become so much more tangible for someone to see the picture and they go, oh, that 5 years is suddenly not so impossible. And a really favorite book of mine is called The Art of Impossible by Steve Kompler. He has this point they talk about: big I, little I, impossible. A big I impossible is, I'm not going to grow another 2 feet, become African-American and learn to play basketball. I'm not. It's not going to happen. It is physically impossible for that to occur. A low I, a lowercase I, is I'm not going to be a pro bodybuilder. Well, I mean, yeah, if you go by the average person standard, sure. But if I at least put my foot in the game, then I have far more of a chance than someone who's not doing anything. I want to be a pro lacrosse player. At least if you put your foot in the game, is a tangible opportunity that there could be that outcome. And then we implement those processes, those performances, and now we've got a structure, a framework or a mold that we can use. And as you would know, every single person and their performances and process is very different. What numbers does your position need to hit? What is your position? You guys get very, very complex and very in detail with your combine stuff, tracking and data, and what's the wingspan, what's the length, what's the stride, what's your 40 sprint, etc. Those things become what do I have to do to get to that? What do I have to do to improve that? What do I have to do to lift my numbers? The process has become, what am I doing first? Am I getting my meals ready? Am I getting to my education? Am I getting my schooling done? I'm a student athlete. Do I want to go to college with a GPA or just go to college to play sport? So do I need to get my education, my homework in? Am I studying? Those become those things, right? Where it's like we're teaching about a long-term process, delayed gratification, but along the way we set these checkpoints to reinforce behaviors. Like behavioral learning, we're reinforcing positive decisions by saying, hey, this checkpoint, we're here. This has paid off. This is good. We're moving forward. Now we've got those KPIs. We can see it's paying out. It's paying off and working. And so that's how we try to really, on a long-winded sprint here, really like to deconstruct that 5-year goal, because as I said, a lot of people just view a 5-year goal as like that'd be nice. But with this process, we can break down that potential into tangible, actionable bits. And now it's a living thing that is moving. We're working on it. It's actually possible because you can see it.
Yeah. I I love that detailed, and this is referring back to an interview that I listened to you to help preparation here, where you had an initial method of intense weekly assessments, and you felt that was over nurturing your clients. So now speak to us where we're differentiating this long-term planning without over nurturing and holding their hand through this process. Like that must have been a powerful realization for you as a coach. And you held the mirror up and you made a decision to redirect your efforts to accomplish what the individual set out to.
Yeah, so one of my favorite piece of psychological literature is on the concept of self-determination theory. It's one of the prominent theories of motivational science. And at the pillar of it, there are three fundamental concepts, which is relatedness, competence, and autonomy. And usually what we find is that the intention of self-determination theory is that people by inherent nature are driven for growth and mastery, and we simply have to try and work to foster and extrapolate that so they can be motivated for it to occur. And it's on the motivational spectrum. Basically, we see like internally, people all the time talk about internal versus external motivation. And the best way to get emotional buy-in from people is give them as much intrinsic love and motivation towards the thing as you possibly can. Make it a part of who they are. Well, how do you do that? You nail all three components of the pillars, right? You nail autonomy, you nail competence, you nail relatedness. Now, one of the things that I found was early days, I was very hand holding. I wanted to over deliver as a coach, make sure that it's all about them and give them as much information as possible. I want to give them everything that they needed, which in my head would make sense. Like, be the coach that I didn't have. Here's all the information, the reasons why. The only issue with that was paralysis by analysis, right? Like you give them too much information. They don't know what they're working with. They don't know what they're doing because they haven't got a specific pathway. So one of the things that I found was in order to give them that motivation, to help them reach that intrinsic level of self-growth and determination, I have to give them some agency. I have to give them autonomy. I have to let them prove to me that they can make decisions and choices. The first few weeks, like, sure, we're mapped out, like, there's an onboarding process, we're going through the goal setting. But then because we've given them this massive time frame of 5 years, and although their goal might be, their first show they want to do with us as a physique competitor might be in 2 years, it might be in 18 months. It's learn to crawl before you walk before you run before you sprint. We're building up. It used to be, hey, let's go guns blazing, do everything all at once. Now, if you're an advanced athlete that I've worked with before, or like you come to me for another coach, cool. We can shuffle this a little bit. But for the average person that's just getting going at a level of operation that we kind of see needs to happen to get to that physique level, to get to that performance level, we got to learn the fundamentals first. We got to take time to build that up, reinforce those behaviors, and build those habits.
Yeah, I like this, and we're also differentiating autonomy and agency. So now it's agency. We're connecting it to the vision, the goals, and the direction we're taking, and we're still handing off the responsibility to the person with the autonomy. So you're not helping make the decisions for them. You're empowering them to make those decisions that then lead to the goal. So yeah, I love that differentiation of autonomy and agency there. Um, and you've done a great job building a strong online community. So these individuals that are working with you, it's not just alone. You're not checking all these different tabs that are open on your computer. You're able to bring those people together. How have you done that better than a lot of people out there that keeps these people connected to you and rocking and rolling and then passionate about their long-term visions?
Well, that's one of the interesting parts about the online space, right? Is like social media, online presence. It's as much as we're connected these days, we're still so far into isolation and loneliness. It's still so far apart. Like I can have conversations with you. I can have clients in America, and I can have clients on the other side of the country in Australia, which is just as big as America. But in the online space, we're not seeing them in person. I'm not seeing them directly. I'm not having conversations with them every single day face to face, which we know if we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if we look at the self-determination theory, we're seeing relatedness and connection as an important part of life. It's a fundamental need. Humans by nature, whether it be you're an introvert or an extrovert, there's fundamental needs to connect. And one of the things I found is a lot of coaches don't create a space in which people feel part of something. And I understand, and we've understood from the beginning that not everyone's goal is similar. I mean, we've had triathlon runners, we've had ultra marathon runners. I've got defense force fighter pilots. I've got bodybuilders, soccer players. Like our list of people is very diverse. But the thing that brings them all together is potential, is progress, is self development, is pushing themselves, is operating at a higher level, wanting more for themselves. And so we found that rather than being like, oh, all our bodybuilders, go talk here. All of our long distance runners, let's go talk here. All of our body composition clients, let's go here. No, let's all share the wins, hype each other up. What is a team? A team is everyone has their unique jobs, their individual positions and roles, and usually the cohesiveness helps everyone work better. You see it in social science literature. One of the first sports science studies ever done was when we understood the difference, or the speed difference in cycling long distance alone versus cycling long distance with a group. Though you may not have been a winner, your speed inherently improved when you went together. You know, what's that quote? You want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together. That's how we see the team that we're building. We try and reinforce. Get everyone into a place where I want someone just to drop that they had a win. Hey, you know, first time ever this week, I turned down alcohol. And, you know, we didn't touch the booze this weekend. And I'm also down 5 pounds. Another client, just got my first time on stage, you know, won a trophy, got my medal. Fantastic, had a great time, loved every second of it, can't wait to do it again. My soccer players, oh, you know, this contract just landed, we got this is happening. Cool. Everyone's reinforcing each other, hyping each other up, responding, interacting. You know, it's hard to buy buying all the time. Not every single person's always active, but there's the diversity amongst it where someone is going to say something where another person like, oh, I want that too. That's a similar goal to me. It's a similar thing that I want. And now they're starting to believe more in the cause, believe more in their ability, because someone who's further along than them just showed that it's possible. They've done the same thing. I've got clients that'll see previous clients' results and go, this guy's my hero because I started where he is and I saw where he got. So that connection goes beyond just me being in charge. We try to have an open forum, an open group, you know, a collective chat location, and we try to catch up as much as possible. So, you know, in Queensland, here in Australia, you go to a show, we're going to be one of the largest groups in the audience because that's where a lot of our athletes are. And so, like, we try to bring we try to bring the vibe with us, try to bring that energy, the teamness to it, especially to an individual sport. Try to bring a collective team to that location so that you know, like, yeah, you're up there by yourself, but you're not by yourself. You're part of something bigger, and that is this entire group is moving forward.
Yeah, that's awesome. And goals evolve, right? People get into marathon running late in life. They get into bodybuilding late in life, and their goal may not to become a pro, but the goal just to get on stage, huge. So now I can transition. I could come to you for marathon running, and then see the value of putting in bodybuilding work and getting on stage. So it starts to create this cross connection and beautiful futures that they wouldn't have thought otherwise, like a true potential within the team. That's awesome. I do want to touch on the vision in the future for Matter Athletica. So what's on deck? It's not just clients and community. What do we have to look forward to?
So one of the big things that I'm really passionate about, that we're passionate about doing, is elevating the game of coaching as well, elevating the game of body composition, of performance coaching. So one of the things that we're really working hard on behind the scenes is the Matter Institute, which is we're putting out a lot. Like, it already has a lot of content there, like a lot of these conversations and stuff that I've presented on in the past. I've done presentations on, seminars on, summits on. We've re-recorded it, put it up there just to learn. I'm a big believer in creating an education or a space of leveling up for people and trying to basically shortchange the distance of how long it took me to get where I am. Here's all the information. Here's all the things that I did or I've learned and studied that you otherwise might not think to do. You might not want to go to university for psychology, but if those skills can teach you to be a better coach, I want that. I want you to be a better coach. I remember Cav having a conversation with me. I joked with him one day and was like, I'm going to beat you as a coach. Like, having a laugh with Cav. And he's like, I'd be a horrible mentor if I didn't want that. I'm the same way. I'm a big believer that who I'm working with it shouldn't take them as long as it took me. My job is to shortchange that distance from A to B as the best way possible with what I believe is the method that works. So the Matter Institute is a big vision for us. Online space, it's already existing, it's already there. There's so many free lectures and resources to watch or learn from. We've got a massive one coming out, which is, again, tying in that psychological aspect that we're very close to releasing and finishing off, which is psychological preparation for physique competition. The main point being is that people aren't psychologically prepared to compete. It's not a realm of the sport that's talked about. It's a very X's and O's type sport. Drop your macros, increase your output. So for us, a big change that I want to see in the space is we're treating it like any other sport. We're treating it like any other athlete, which is they have a mental stability and mental and emotional intelligence. They have emotional and psychological needs, and sometimes those needs mean they're not ready to compete. How do we prepare for that? How, just as we prepare the body, how do we prepare the brain? So there's a lot of cool stuff coming out in that space that we're currently building out and really want to try and nail. And the expansion of that is going to be huge. It's our big focus, a big baby. And then the 10-year dream is the best performance facility in Australia. That is like, it's no longer, it won't be a online portal and online space anymore. It'll be online coaching, online, absolutely. But there is a big lapse in the performance facility space here in Australia, especially after being to America. And our goal is to make that location like you're traveling to us, because you don't just want that standard techno gym or matrix gym equipment that you see at every Snap Fitness or every, F45. You're coming there because this place is going to make you a better person. And so that's our, we're talking 5 years, we're talking 10 years. Again, see, we're big picture people. We're talking 10 years. In the next 10 years, this is what's going to happen. So that's the real big focus points for us over the next few years.
I love it. Which city are you in?
Brisbane.
Brisbane. Yeah, I've been to Brisbane once. I had a lovely time. Love the coffee down there and sunsets. I got some Brisbane pictures. I know there's the Brisbane sign on the water. So like walked out there, so got a beautiful sunrise with that little guy in there. I've been to Australia a lot, Perth, Brisbane, and Sydney, I think 3 times. And it's a special place, man. Perth was real cool. I mean, the food, just the food there, it is wonderful, man.
So you've explored more of my country than I have. I've never actually been to Perth. It's such a leap from where we are to just like there's nothing there where it's like at the moment grabbing us to go. We're going to go to Perth, but like you've seen more of the country than I have.
Well, I did go to history deep diving while I was in Perth, so discovered just the Irish roots there. So just and kids from Dublin, like I would go to coffee shops and some pubs out there, and it was all just like kids from Ireland. Like that's their gap year spot is Perth for whatever reason. I guess to follow their criminal ancestors. I can say that as a McQuilkin. But yeah, it was wonderful. And Sydney was a good walkabout.
Sydney is very good for the metro connection. It's like you can walk from one end to the other, and it's a good day's walking around and seeing everything. But you can see the Quay, the Opera House, the bridge. You can take the tours out to Bondi, walk back, and you're under the bridge again, and you're walking around the CBD and seeing the Centrepoint Tower and the aquarium. That sort of it's a great walk, Sydney.
Yeah. Well, then let's continue to paint some picture here. You yourself are a podcast host. Who are some of your and you've been on Dave Tate's Elite FTS Table Talk. So you've hit some markers. You've had some banger guests. Like who's still out there in your dream 100 that you're aiming for to loop into your show?
Oh, I mean, there's some interesting thoughts around that as to who we bring on. It's not I'm not just bringing on people that are more bodybuilders, more XYZ. The diversity of the conversation is about people's potential and talking about the amazing things they've done. We've had Mike Israetel, we've had Coach Cav, had yourself, had a lot of the mastermind group because they're unique qualities and the things that they do. I'm really looking at trying to get a few more coaches on myself and looking at more educators. There's some connections that we have that have led to some great things that you suddenly realize people aren't so far away. And you're like, this would be an interesting conversation. We're working on getting some more conversations with the Merrick Health team because we want to talk about health and health science and like lifestyle and health blood work and things like that. We're looking at trying to get a few more higher level bodybuilders onto the podcast, just because again, people don't view them as people the same way they should. They have emotions, feelings, they have their own experiences and knowledge that they can bring to a conversation. That is this something I want to pursue? There's some avenues down there we're really trying to connect with in the future. It's building well. It's leading to some great conversations we want to work with. God, who else is there? Yeah, I've got what I call my Mount Rushmore of podcasts that I, in every other sense, in any other life, I would think is absolutely crazy. But the level of people that we've had on so far, I'm just not even seeing it as a crazy thing anymore. That's Chris Williamson. I want to have him on there because I think it'd be a great conversation. Dr.
Austin,
Peterson,
Texas.
Austin, Texan. Who else we have on there? Jordan Peterson. I want to get Jocko, and I wanted to get. Oh, who was the other one? I remember I said it's Brooklyn. Derek from Merrick, more plates, more dates, because he's like just the creation of Merrick, I think is fantastic. But if we add another head to Mount Rushmore, it'd be Goggins. Four just very, very elite people that, in their fields are great conversationists, have a lot of a story to say, but also just a unique perspective. If you listen to and you go back and listen to the Mike Israel podcast, I like to have a conversation that isn't just about their specialty. We didn't talk sets and reps with Mike Israel. We talked communism, philosophy, history, his living behind the Iron Curtain. So, these conversations, like what was it like going from behind the Iron Curtain to America and getting that taste of freedom? Conversations they don't normally have, but have a great thought on.
That's awesome. I love it. Yeah. So the beauty in Dream 100 is one of the tasks within our fitness mastermind that Coach Cav is leading, and that this has been my favorite exercise, especially with podcast guests, because you're listing out your 100, which is not easy. 100 people that you want to talk to, and then it's about making those connections. Okay, well, at the top of my Mount Rushmore, I got my man, Coach Pat Riley here. So now, if he's numero uno, I got to backtrack and build connections and relationships within that help lead me to interview Coach Pat Riley. So now, if you got Williamson on here, he's in Austin, Texas, and we spoke about this last time in Virginia, where, dude, your next United States trip and trek, a pit stop in Texas. I got a guest room over here. Y'all are welcome to. Let's start making some Austin connections that can put you in place there. And then the next time around within the year, you've got the connections and the relationships that help put you in a position to get one step closer, if not in the same room with Williamson. So this 5-year vision, this 10-year vision, that's awesome, man. It inspires me to really put this down on paper for myself. As business owner, you just get focused on day-to-day tasks, but then we can't get lost in the sauce. We got to keep this big vision of what we're cooking here going. So
100%.
Yeah, I'm charged up, dude. Appreciate you. So now where can people go to follow your journey and continue to contribute? And then if they got big goals themselves within your realm of expertise, where can they learn more and be a part of what you're building there?
Yeah, so we've got a lot of stuff. We are big believers in giving away free education, free content, free information. We did over 100 hours of free content specifically towards coaching, body composition, performance last year alone. You can find my primary page, which is Ben_Mayfield-Smith. You can find our business page, which is Matter Athletica. On Instagram, you can find the Matter Athletica YouTube page. go to our website, matterathletica.com, and you can subscribe to our email list there. You can look at all of our free blogs and articles that get put out there every year. The podcast, which is the Matter Mentality podcast, is on Spotify and YouTube. And yeah, basically use those to download resources, get free information, get all of the stuff. We are big believers in not gatekeeping and giving away as much as we can. So those locations, you'll find everything.
Boom. I'll link it all up here. Well, Ben, thanks for your time, dude. Good morning. Have a wonderful day. I'm going to go to sleep here shortly because we're on that big time difference. All right.
Brother, I appreciate you having me. Thank you very much for having me on.
Oh, yeah. Looking forward to next time. Bye. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Captains and Coaches Podcast. If you like what you heard here today, be sure to like, subscribe, rate, and review the show. If you're looking to learn more about Coach Ben and his team, head to matterathletica.com. No matter where you are in the world, they're willing to work with you and take your training, your performance, your health to the next level. Thank you again for tuning in to another episode of the Captains and Coaches Podcast and helping us raise the game. Bye.